welcome. We're glad you could join us today for the SentryBay webinar. My name is Raj Mehta. I'm the Sales Director here at Prianto. Today's webinar is all about how SentryBay security solutions prevent credential theft. As cyber criminals become more sophisticated, we're seeing a significant rise in attacks on critical infrastructure and an alarming increase in data breaches. This trend is only accelerating with the growing capabilities of AI. To put it into perspective, recent stats have shown that over 25% of UK businesses, that's 1 in 4, have experienced a cyber attack in the last year. And some of the latest high-profile cases involve well-known names like M&S, Co-op, and Harrods, resulting in customer data breaches. These have made headlines and significantly impacted their businesses. One area of increasing concern is credential theft, especially as cyber attacks continue to target remote and hybrid workers. While most of us are familiar with endpoint security solutions such as EDR, XDR, and EPP, these tools alone are not enough. There's a critical gap, one that leaves endpoints vulnerable to threats like keyloggers, screen capture, and DLL injections. If your organizations are delivering remote or hybrid working solutions through Citrix, VMware, which is now Emissa, or Microsoft AVD, Windows 365, then SentryBay protection is designed specifically to address these VDI threats. Today, we're pleased to welcome Paul and Tim from SentryBay, who will demonstrate how protecting users against credential theft and data breaches isn't just about security. It also opens up exciting new opportunities for our partners. Before we get started, for those of you who don't know Prianto is a specialist distributor of enterprise software and part of the QBS technology group that has presence in 19 countries across EMEA with revenues of over $600 million. We help channel partners open new opportunities with innovation and disruptive vendors that drive business outcomes with compelling solutions and high margins. Our core focus areas include modern workspace, hybrid cloud and data center, cybersecurity, AI, automation, and data analytics. Today, we are focusing on cybersecurity. So I will now hand over to Paul at SentryBay.
Thank you, Raj. And before I go ahead, what I wanted to do was just make it very, very clear that I'm going to make some statements, some quotes, and talk about some stories. All the quotes, all the statements, all the stories, we've provided the evidence trail to Prianto already. So if you reach out to Emma Gregson, she can provide you with the links to the specific stories that I'm going to refer to. But what I wanted to do was, before we get involved in the demonstration, I really wanted to set the tone for this webinar and to explain some of the risks that enterprises are going to be seeing. And I wanted to give you one number, and that number is $10.5 trillion. So $10.5 trillion is the number that cyber experts say cybercrime is expected to reach by the end of 2025. It's not a number in 5 or 10 years' time. $10.5 trillion is the value of cybercrime, and it's going to be that number at the end of this year. And that actually represents the greatest transfer of economic wealth in our history. And when you look at the numbers, $10.5 trillion, it's bigger than all the damage inflicted around the world from natural disasters in a year, and is also more profitable than the global drug trade of all the illegal drugs combined. SentryBay is also seeing insurance companies and insurance underwriters starting to make sure that enterprises are taking adequate protections and measures to protect payment card information, infrastructure, and endpoints. And if those numbers don't convince you, a couple of case studies and news stories that you may or may not be aware of is 16 billion Apple, Facebook, and Google passwords were leaked. That's an amazing amount of passwords. United Healthcare, their breach last year has cost them $2.3 billion in 2024 and is still rising. Raj mentioned Harrods and M&S. The M&S breach cost them 400 million so far this year, but a side effect of that has also seen Sainsbury's, one of their competitors, record profits in H1. So we can confirm that it is very, very challenging for cybersecurity professionals. And with the increase of AI, cyber attacks, threat actors are getting smarter. But as Raj pointed out, we do have EDR and XDR and MFA to protect us. Yes, they do a fantastic job in protecting enterprises, but the reality is there's still a significant amount of new attacks taking place every day. According to Microsoft, over 600 million cyber attacks take place every single day. And while EDR and XDR do a great job in detecting and quarantining threats, it takes them on average around 100 days to identify a threat and then update their software and roll that out to companies. So it's a big problem. It's increasing, and companies are genuinely worried about it. They believe they have protections in place, but they're fully aware that they're not protecting the estate in its entirety. So who is SentryBay? SentryBay is a unique cybersecurity company. We don't detect, we defend the estate. And we are basically able to stop data exfiltration attempts by cyber threat actors that are using techniques like malware or infostealers with keyloggers and screen captures. This allows them to monitor the keystrokes of employees, and it allows them to monitor the screens of the employees and what they're viewing. And this is one of the reasons that Gartner recently said that cyber threat actors don't just have to hack in, they can log in using employee credentials. And no end of internal training can stop an employee or third party clicking a link on an email and allowing the cyber threat actors to get in. SentryBay is used by many of the world's leading banks and defense companies around the world that have mission critical systems that require maximum protection. And on the next slide, what I wanted to do was just show you and just cover some of the key market drivers. I think it's important for the attendees to understand what are the drivers and why should people be so interested in SentryBay. We've spoken about data breaches being on the increase, and that detection and blocking technologies is good, but it only covers a percentage of the threats. Over-reliance on market detection and mitigation really is not solving the problem. If it was solving the problem, why is cybercrime expected to reach $10.5 trillion by the end of this year? There's other pressures on businesses. When you look at compliance and regulatory frameworks, when you look at the increased volumes and risks for productions and sessions of data theft, it's clear that there is a challenge. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to ask Tim if you could sort of go through, if we could just really showcase the video of our protections to actually show people on this webinar what is unique about SentryBay, why we differentiate our solution, because many companies are not putting a frontline defensive mechanism in place. And SentryBay stops the threat from infostealing malware instantly, even if an endpoint has been compromised. Once our solution is installed, the threat actors just cannot capture any usable information. So
okay, great. So In the video today, what we're going to do is look at the threats and the vulnerabilities. We're going to showcase this with 3 unique vectors and using AVD and W365 as an attack vector. So what we have here is at the bottom of the screen, we have a keylogger. So it's a visual representation of a keylogger, and this will be very typical running from an info stealer. So what you can see, the user is typing in his username, he's typed in his password. He's gone into his AVD and he's running a browser session. It could be any application. But what you can see is every single thing that he's typing is being tracked. So the threat there is the malware. The vulnerability is the AVD remote desktop application or Windows app itself. Now what we've done is enabled the remote desktop, the SentryBay's armored client. And Amber, if you could just pause the video just for a quick second there. What you can see at the bottom in the info stealer now is every single keystroke that the user's typed is being randomized. Now it's really important to point out that we are randomizing those keystrokes. So we're not encrypting them, we're not hashing them. So you can't use cryptanalysis techniques to reverse engineer those. And in the future, quantum decryption, again, is going to be completely useless. The data that's coming out is bad data, it's just randomized text. The way this functions is SentryBay has a driver. It intercepts those keystrokes right down at the lowest level, kernel, and it takes the keystrokes and puts the legitimate keystrokes into the application in focus, so where the user's adding their password. But anything between that application in focus and the kernel mode driver tries to intercept those keystrokes, such as keylogger will receive that bad and redundant data. So again, we can see this now as we're typing the secondary password. Our credentials have now been safeguarded, as well as any data that we type within the VDI session. So this could be a VDI, this could be a browser as well. Now let's look at the screen capture protection. So again, you can see our users working away, and every single screen that they go onto every 10 seconds, an info stealer can be sitting on the desktop or sitting on the machine and recording that screen. Now the hidden danger really isn't that, okay, it's captured your data. Yes, you may break your PCI DSS, your HIPAA, those regulations may be breached. But the big problem is that if you've got AI that's able to synthesize and go through and pass all the information from that screen capture data, then at that point you've got a huge amount of data that's going to be ready and available for those access brokers or threat actors. Now what we have is armored client excuse me, enabled on this device, and you can see on the right hand side where the screen capture is happening. Instead of the screen capture data being there, we blanked it out the screen. So the individual application that's protected, whether that's your browser, your VDI session, that's also being protected. Now the final thing really to cover is about DLL injection. Now why is this important? Well, you have certain applications that actually have controls built into them. Now the problem is, if there's no integrity checking on those applications, then things like natural screen capture protection that might be there, they may be functioning. However, malware or even a threat actor inside a threat can download simple tools such as remote DLL agent, inject a very, very simple DLL, which isn't malicious, but has malicious uses as well. And you can see it's defeated that screen capture protection, so that whether that's a user again or a malware, that threat can be enabled. Now what SentryBay does is we take that application, we encapsulate that particular application with our protection, and if we try to violate the integrity of the application, we can see that we've blocked that malicious injection. So we're keeping the integrity of the app, and we're providing that keylogging and screen capture. So we're protecting not only the first mile as the user types, but the final mile as well, in terms of what the user's viewing as well. So thank you very much for that, and I'm going to hand back over to Paul.
Thanks, Tim. And so what we've just shown you very briefly is how the SentryBay Armored Client solution works. And yeah, I know that chief information security officers, there's a lot of enterprises out there with very, very good, strong security policies. But many of the times, the weakest link isn't necessarily the managed environment, it's the unmanaged environment. It's where you have a supplier or third party that requires access to your corporate systems, and you don't have the ability to impose security systems on a third-party device that requires access to your corporate systems. What SentryBay offers is a lightweight solution that's easy to implement, easy to install, but offers maximum protection and stops threat actors from easily stealing employee credentials and employee data. And one of the other things I wanted to highlight is that SentryBay isn't necessarily a household name, but we already defend and protect millions of endpoints. We actually are the OEM behind Citrix App Protect. They OEM'd our code a number of years ago. And so we already protect Citrix endpoints in App Protect. And a use case, as an example, is there are a lot of frustrated Citrix customers out there that are frustrated with the costs of having hardware on site, and also frustrated with Citrix's policy changes around their reseller network. And so there are companies that are migrating away from Citrix to AVD, and they want to take the same level of protection. So if you do come across that type of customer, where there are Citrix customer looking to move away from a Citrix environment, the SentryBay Armored Client solution provides the same protections for Azure Virtual Desktop. We're also in partnership with iGel. We're an iGel Ready partner, and we're actively growing our reseller network. So this is one of the reasons we set up this session today. We wanted to talk to some of the Prianto resellers, see if we could get you energized and motivated around our solution. And why should you be motivated? Well, we're seeing our current resellers winning more deals because they're differentiating their security offering by adding the SentryBay Armored Client line of defense. But we're also seeing them make increased margins of around 20%. So you can certainly win more deals and make better profits and replace lost Citrix revenue by working with Prianto and SentryBay. And before we take questions, I'll just finish off with one comment. We've been currently testing in our labs our solution, and we can actually see the new threats leveraging AI and able to bypass EDR detection. So things are only going to get worse, and it's really important to add an additional layer of frontline defense, and that is SentryBay. There are some other slides. I was going to ask Amber if you could go to, just past the key market driver slide. We can just talk through the protections that we provide. So here, protected environments, Citrix, VMware Parallels, Azure Virtual Desktop. We protect the browsers from the Google Firefox environment, and also workflow tools. Tim and myself are here to help resellers. So if you do find an opportunity, we would be more than happy to schedule a call with that opportunity to demonstrate in real time our solution, to answer any of the technical questions and help you position your offerings and our solution the best way. So we're here to try and support you. With that in mind, I'd like to sort of finish off. Yes, you've got an overview there. I don't want to go through the slides too much, but probably now's a good time to just finish off and open it up to Q&A to see if anyone's got any specific questions that they'd like to ask. Thanks, Amber.
Sorry, there was a question there in terms of does this impact the performance of any of the protected apps? The answer is no. It's extremely light. So we use up to 2% CPU, and that's when we're at full capacity. It's about 20 megabytes of RAM, so none of those Chrome tab issues that we see. and then it's about 600 megabytes of disk space on the drive. So it's designed to be transparent to the user on there as well.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned it already, but we do have defense companies and lots of banks using our solution. But also the Armored Client solution allows you to set policies for different individuals. So where you actually trust senior executives, you can basically set policies so that they're not impacted for screen sharing on Teams or Zoom and so on. And that can be quite useful. But also you can impose more rigid positions on bring your own device. So a lot of companies now look at the cost of the managed environment and want to have some flexibility and allow employees to use their own devices. And so, and again, you can't control the security posture of that device, but what you can do is put in place our protections. So when you're running a VDI session, you can make sure that that VDI session starts by running the SentryBay Armored Client solution. Myself, I like to use my own device for gaming. I don't want to be impacted by security measures. So you can actually pause our protections and get on with your gaming when you're in your personal time. But then when you're actually coming back to do business and be more professional and you need to access the corporate systems, you can turn our protections on. And without our protections on, you're unable to get access to the corporate systems. And again, there's a lot of feature and functions and benefits which we can go through, but I don't think that's for today's call. But certainly if any of the resellers are interested for a deeper dive, we have created a smart link which has individual videos, case studies from some of our existing customers, why they bought SentryBay Armored Client solution and how they've utilized it, Prianto Smart Link, and you can download any of those videos, any of that material, and use that for your own benefit. But I can only ask you to talk to Raj and the sales team at Prianto and get a reseller agreement set up where you'll get some additional benefits and some additional support. So thank you, Raj. They're the sort of key points that I wanted to sort of make today. Hopefully the session was helpful, but if there is any other questions, feel free to raise those.
If I just add, if you want to set up a POC, we can set those up. Paul can speak about if it's charged. I think it's free, but we can also supply NFL licenses to get you up and running as quickly as possible.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Tim, for your time today. I hope everybody got some value from the webinar, but please do call us if you have any further questions. Thank you.